Hello and welcome to my part 3 of being a YouTube photographer series. Guys, while I've specifically created this series to target photographers who are thinking of starting a YouTube channel, much of what I have to say could also be useful to those who are interested in starting other types of channels. If you haven't seen the first 2 videos in this series, I'd recommend those to you also, and if I'm honest, those are probably more important than this final episode anyway. Having said that, I hope that this video can be of some value to you. In it, I'll be sharing with you my best advice that I would have loved to have had when I was just getting started. Keep in mind that any one of these things I'm about to say could be their own dedicated video, but I really just wanted to throw at you a summary of the most important lessons that I've learned over the last 3 years. So be warned, this is a lot of information fast. The first piece of advice I have for you is to create value. I did a series of interviews with average photographers who consume YouTube content to see what makes them tick, what types of channels they follow, which they don't. I had them show me their subscriber lists and talk about who they follow and why. I also asked them who they used to follow but unsubscribed to. I feel like I learned a lot of really valuable and interesting things from that, but the first thing that I learned is that the best way that people find you is by creating immediate value for them. YouTube is the second most utilized search engine right after Google. If people are on the platform, often it's because they're seeking information. This is why gear reviews do so well for getting you views. If someone just purchased an exciting camera body and now they're anxious to figure out what lenses are going to be the best ones they should save up for, chances are they're going to turn to YouTube. On the other hand, are people going to go to YouTube to search for some random channel's philosophies on street photography, or to see some dude they've never heard of share their street photography shots from their recent trip to New York? I mean, it's possible, but it's probably not very likely. So value, that is how people find you. But value doesn't have to come in the form of gear reviews. That is where most people start, but keep in mind that that's not the only way to create value. Try to be creative and set your channel apart from others. For instance, a recent video I did included some actual research that questioned a common assumption that has been recycled in the photo community for the past decade. That video did really well, but mostly because it offered a lot of value. It helped people feel better about not buying expensive gear, and it was supported by actual research. But other ways that people create value on YouTube is by aggregating other content or making information available to people who are searching for it. By studying trends and being aware of what consumers' needs are, it can help you think of ways that you can create value for them. But then we come to the next thing I learned by interviewing all these viewers, and that is that it's not just enough to create value. That is the thing that will get them to your channel initially, sure, but that's not what will get them to stay. What will get people to convert from a viewer to a subscriber is that you must be likable. People told me this over and over again in different words. I'd ask them how they found a specific channel, and they would say things like, well, I just switched to Fuji and I saw one of their videos. And then I'd ask, why did you subscribe? And invariably they would say things like, well, I liked their content, or I liked their personality. Being likable is very complicated. There are hundreds of books and scores of psychologists and gregarious business educators who have dedicated their careers to this topic. We don't have time to cover even a portion of what it means to be likable here, but for YouTube, there are some quick things that I will mention that I think will help you. First off, be genuine and true to yourself. Don't do videos just for views. If a topic doesn't interest you, or if you don't really believe what you're saying, many people will see right through that. But also, if you're creating content that you don't love and you don't feel good about, you probably won't be able to sustain it. The next thought I have is to get to the point quickly. Don't waste people's time. Speak with enthusiasm and stay on topic. I can barely watch my early videos. So with that in mind, I don't mind sacrificing a little bit of sensor size to have a better shooting experience. And that is what drew me to the X-T2. Writing a script or even using a teleprompter, if you can keep the flow natural, can be huge for helping with that. It will help you stay on track, and it will help you speak with more confidence. The one I use is called the Parrot, which you can stick on just about any lens and use with your phone, and it's also really cheap. But when it comes to being likable, you can also do this by helping people feel validated or speaking to their fears. There are actually many popular channels who some might consider to be unlikable, but who build an audience based on making their viewers feel like their purchasing decisions were correct, or by establishing a common enemy. These types of channels will often build themes of hatred towards a product or a brand that many feel threatened by. For instance, Sony is killing it in the market, and a lot of consumers actually feel threatened by that. If you make Sony bashing a recurring theme of your channel, I'm sure that could work quite well for making you likable to a large group of consumers who would love nothing more than to see Sony fail. Modern marketing calls this tribe creation, and it can be an effective strategy for gaining an audience, but be careful with it. You will create enemies, and that can be unpleasant. unpleasant. It will attract a lot of a negative attention, and I have to imagine that's hard to sustain. It's also very difficult to change your mind later. Personally, I think it's better to be brand agnostic and to be as unbiased as you possibly can, which I think will serve you best in the long run. I bring this up only because these are strategies that some people use with some success. However, on the opposite side of the spectrum is a strategy designed to help people feel good. Look for ways to brighten their day and offer them some cheer. Smiles and humor can help a lot. Think about people you like to be around. Chances are they are people who offer you support and encouragement. They cheer you up when you're down, and they're people that you can trust. If you're not that type of person, it's not easy to fake that. You'll appear like a dirty salesman. But I think these are qualities that we can all work on, and by offering your best self to your subscribers, I think that can be a win for both of you. Another way to be likable is to just be really good at what you do, and this is probably the most important thing. If you possess deep subject matter expertise and are willing to share it, you will attract a following. People follow talent and knowledge. They hope it will rub off on them and provide some inspiration. Now, if you don't have talent or knowledge, that's hard. You'll need to gain that first. Does that mean not starting a channel? Maybe. I don't think there's anything wrong with studying and working hard to master something before trying to teach that to others. However, I think there's plenty of value in sharing your journey. There are many people out there who might appreciate watching you improve and learning vicariously with you. Not everyone will appreciate this, but they weren't going to subscribe to you anyway, so forget them. The next way to foster likability is in telling interesting stories. And I'm using the word story loosely here, but if your content has a general story arc to it, some elements of drama or conflict which eventually gets resolved, that can help engage an audience. Probably the simplest and best advice I can offer about being likable is to make the type of content you enjoy watching. At first, you may do some borrowing of ideas, and there's nothing wrong with that to a degree, but your goal really should be to find your own voice, always with the goal to create videos that you really want to watch yourself. Okay, I think we spent enough time on being likable. Let's talk a little bit more about your content. When it comes to content strategy, you'll probably have some really grandiose plans, but my next advice is don't commit yourself to a specific content strategy too early. For instance, it's common for a channel to run out and buy some intro graphics and music to really come out with a bang and declare what your channel is all about for the world to gawk at. It's very tempting to want to say, hello world, here I am. Come listen to what I have to say about this very specific topic and come back on these very specific days to hear these very specific things. But guys, not only will no one notice your channel for a while, but whatever you choose to focus on, I guarantee it's gonna change to some degree. Don't worry so much about the fancy intros and the big unveilings. Likewise, don't get too caught up in expensive gear, unless that gear is essential in telling the type of story you want to tell. You need time to see what resonates with viewers and to discover what you're most passionate about. If you're going to invest money or time in something, invest in things that help you tell your story better. Better locations, better subjects, better story. And when it comes to buying gear, prioritize efficiency over quality. Invest in your workflow. Remember, and this is key, if you try to make things easily repeatable, you will be able to make more videos. On the other hand, if every time you have to make a video, it's a monumental effort to get your whole studio set up, it'll make it less likely that you will create content. A good example of this is don't buy the most expensive, best quality 4K device out there on the market just for the best video quality possible. It might be better to invest in something more simple that has a flip screen or on a monitor. A flip screen on a camera or an external monitor will save you so many hours of messed up shots. I can't tell you the number of wasted hours I've had filming myself talking to a camera that was in sleep mode or speaking to a camera that was out of focus or which had the exposure way off. Your time is too valuable to muck about with any of that. When it comes to growth and monetization, those are two things that will allow you to continue to do what you love. Remember the one guiding principle: big things are created by small things. So with monetization and sustaining yourself, it's a lot of little things. One of the little things is using Patreon. I'd recommend starting Patreon sooner rather than later. Don't be ashamed of it and don't worry about asking for money. And your channel doesn't have to be perfect before you do. If you don't know how you want to reward people, don't worry about it. Just start by letting people give you a few bucks a month. Give them early access to deleted scenes or give them access to Instagram stories or presets. Don't overthink this. Some people just want to have more access to you because they like you. You can dial in how you structure your rewards later, but in the meantime, you're gonna start building some momentum. Another little thing could be selling presets. Many will thumb their nose at this, but when you started into photography and you had no idea what to do with color on an image, what did you do? I'm guessing you bought some presets. It's nice to have a bunch to play with and to give people a starting point. And there's no reason not to sell your color philosophy. Just know what you're selling people. It's not snake oil, but it's a chance for them to make their photos and footage a little bit more like yours, and a way for them to contribute to your channel. It's a win for both of you. The next little thing is to monetize your channel. During the first year, I turned off monetization on my channel, and I made a big deal about that. But the feedback I got from the community surprised me. They told me they didn't mind monetization in the ads, and they encouraged me to turn it back on to be able to support me. Now, it's not gonna make you rich, but again, every little bit helps. The next little thing is to use affiliate links, but be ethical and upfront about what you like and what you don't like about the products that you review. Some people will go out and buy what you talk about, even if you talk negatively about it. There's nothing wrong with inserting yourself into that transaction when it's likely that your video played a role in that decision. But again, just be honest. And when it comes to sponsorships, which are another little thing, be careful. If you can, try to do sponsorship deals outside of the things that you regularly review, and be clear about your relationships. If you become sponsored by a specific type of gear that you do review, be upfront about it and admit that you're a little less biased than you were before. A little more biased than you were before. If someone gives you gear, I would consider that a sponsorship, and you should disclose that in your review. In general, I do not consider it unethical to accept help from a manufacturer as long as you are always upfront about those relationships and honest about the inherent bias that you have as a result. Remember, even if you don't accept freebies or sponsorships, you have brand bias. Be aware of it and always be upfront about it. Being human is to be biased. To pretend to be completely unbiased is false, and I would consider that just as unethical as someone pretending to not have a sponsorship when they actually do. Another small way to make money might be to sell prints, but only after you're sure the quality is high. You should probably get good at printing first. Finally, sell swag if you want, but no one buys swag. And just like with building a monetization strategy, building a community also involves lots and lots of little things. Building a community is the hardest part of what you'll do. Getting to your first 1,000 is your hardest 1,000. Your first 10,000 will be your hardest 10,000, and so on. With that in mind, you have to work really hard to seed your channel. And I use the word seed very purposefully. What you're doing is planting little seeds. Again, going back to the research I did of viewers' behaviors, people who subscribe to a channel don't often do so the first time they see a video from a channel. They have to see your content multiple times sometimes before they become convinced that they like you enough to get updates from you when you produce content. But the likelihood will go up the more you engage with people. So with that in mind, respond to everyone in the comments. Be active in other channels. Pick YouTubers who are like you, but who have just a little bit more popularity than you do, and actively engage with them and their community. And do so early when they release videos. Have a good, strong avatar that makes it obvious that you are a maker of YouTube videos. Some people, not all people, but some people will find you this way. The next little thing is, it's actually a big thing. Spend more time on your thumbnails and titles. To me, creating videos that get watched is a lot like writing a song. Good songwriters, they actually start with a title and a hook. They know that it's actually a good title and a good hook that will make their songs popular, and that's where they spend their time. For better or for worse, YouTube videos are the same way. If you get the title and thumbnail wrong, it could mean complete banishment of an otherwise excellent video. Like with this video. Really good video, really proud of it, but no one watched it because my title and thumbnail didn't really resonate with people. Now, let's talk about the sometimes channel-killing viruses that are trolls and haters. And my best advice for dealing with negative comments on your videos is to develop a strategy for dealing with it and sticking to it. When someone is mean to you, being a jerk back to them is extremely tempting, and it can even be enjoyable. It can make you feel better almost instantly, but it's extremely selfish and it does nothing to help grow your channel. And when you really think about it, how is that any different than what that commenter did to you? As hard as it is, your channel will be better off if you can remain humble, calm, and treat their comment with objectivity. Remember, it costs you nothing to be nice and gracious, even when the criticism is invalid, mean-spirited, or inconsequential. It's never very fun to hear that someone doesn't like something you've worked really hard on and you've poured your heart into, but you can either consider their feedback and improve where you can, or just ignore it. But by becoming defensive, you will certainly make an enemy. Whereas, who knows, maybe if you would have treated them a little bit more like you like to be treated, maybe you would have won them over and maybe changed a heart or two. I don't know. You'll have to decide what is most important to you. For comments that range from objectively critical to mean-spirited criticism, there are several ways to deal with that, but the one that I recommend is to just thank them and move on. For me, the pattern is always the same. 1, I don't get emotional. 2, I thank them for their feedback. 3, I wish them a good day. And 4, I move on to my next task and I don't dwell on that comment. If you follow that approach, you're less likely to say something you may regret. You'll be less likely to be dragged into a debate that will waste everyone's time, and you'll decrease the likelihood that it will ruin your day or that you'll take out your frustrations restrictions on your loved ones, your pets, or your camera gear. And many times when I follow this approach, people have actually apologized for being rude or abrasive. In many cases, it has earned a subscriber rather than an enemy, and that is what I would call a net positive result. As far as trolls, that's a bit different. I would suggest a different strategy with them, but again, stick with a strategy and know how you will respond beforehand so you don't have to dwell on the soul-sucking negativity any longer than you have to. Wallowing in the muck of hatred and bitterness helps no one. These people deserve exactly 0 of your time. Here's what I consider acceptable ways to deal with trolls. 1, completely ignore them. 2, delete it and block the user. One other thing I want to say in regards to dealing with negativity is at the end of all my videos, I say kindness before cameras, as I feel that who we are as people is far more important than the tools we choose to use or even the art we produce. And I'm not claiming to be the most kind person. In fact, I've lost it plenty of times on trolls or even mean-spirited commenters. But ending all my videos with the phrase kindness before cameras helps me to stay centered on what I want to be. And that's a person who is at peace with himself and the world around him, who chooses to brighten and lift others even if they are full of malice. But you'll find your own path. Whatever you choose to do, plan it in advance when you're not full of rage and emotion, and stick with your approach. And remember, YouTube is a creative space and you have every right to be there. Depending on what you choose to focus on, there will likely be people who will try to make you feel like an imposter. Don't let them have power over you. And if you are attacked by other YouTubers, take that as a good sign. They probably wouldn't do that if they didn't feel somehow threatened. And relating to that, my next tip is that don't compare yourself to other channels. Someone will always be doing it better than you. And conversely, there will always be channels doing it worse who for some reason are getting more subscribers than you do. And there will also be those channels that start after your channel that will grow faster and pass you up. But it will not help you to dwell on these facts. The only person you should compete with is the person that you were yesterday. If that didn't sound too cliche. Now, a word on messing up. If you review gear, double check your facts. Read the manual for the product. Don't fire from the hip or you will make mistakes. Mistakes open you up for attacks and it misleads consumers. Having said that, you will make mistakes. Everyone does. Regardless of how careful you are, you're a one-person show who does not have any staff editor or fact checkers, you're bound to mess up. When you do, admit it. Be gracious and humble. Put corrections in the video description and in a pinned comment. You can also go and splice out mistakes in the YouTube editor later. Mess up a video beyond repair? Don't worry about it. View it as practice. Scrap it and do better next time. Or start a Patreon page and use the messed up content that still might be somewhat entertaining to the certain type of people who like you. Give it to them. They might appreciate more access to you and they will probably forgive your weaknesses. Now, let's talk about success. Most people agree that the one metric for measuring success on YouTube is subscribers. It's the most public stat and the ultimate sign of legitimacy to everyone. It's easy to get caught up in this metric. For me, when I put out a video that I'm really proud of, that is the type of video that I'm most passionate about, and it gets low view count and low subscriber count, like again, this video, seriously, go watch this video. It's way more entertaining than the one that you're currently watching. But then if you compare that video to another talking head video about gear that I did that gets a crazy amount of views that I actually think is pretty stupid, that can be disheartening. And it can also be tempting just to scrap your vision for the channel and just do the type of videos that bring the most views. But I think the key here is to strike a balance. Ask what it is about the videos that do well, that garner views and subscribers, and try to bring what you can of those videos into the videos that you care most about. But either way, to build a channel and to reach the success that you want to, it will most likely take a long time. It will require patience, consistency, and it will require a great deal of desire on your part to make it work. You've got to want it to work, and you've got to want it bad enough that it will sustain you through years of consistent effort. I've seen many other channels similar to me who started out the same time as me, and during the first year or two, many have slowly dropped out along the way. I'm not sure if they were frustrated that they didn't see the subscriber numbers they were hoping for, or if they realized they couldn't sustain the passion and the amount of effort and time that's required. But either way, you've got to want it to work more than those other folks did. Well guys, that's it. That's all my best advice. Hopefully it was helpful. That concludes my 3-part series on starting a YouTube photography channel. If you haven't watched part 1 and part 2 of this series, I would encourage you to go back and do so. And if you find them valuable, I'd be honored to see you subscribe. But that's it for now. Remember, kindness before cameras. We'll talk to you again real soon.